We have two stories of success, stories of hope that have bloomed in real life, in addition to what you've heard already. And these are always my favorite shares of hope and recovery. First, we're going to have Aaron Shore come up and tell us a story. All right, come on up, my friend. Take your time. And then after that, we'll have my friend Joe Conniff come up as well. But we'll each do about 5-6 minutes and share your story of hope. All right, let's welcome Aaron to the stage. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? Thank you for having me. First speaking engagement. So I told somebody today I probably should have taken a Xanax, but we'll see how I do. Let's see. I actually started working as a recovery coach back in August, volunteer recovery coach for an organization that happens to be here today, Pure Seattle, who's just wonderful, by the way. I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, and ended up having an undiagnosed genetic disorder, which still doesn't meet an official criteria. And up until about the age of 33, 34, had undiagnosed autism spectrum disorder, which they would have classified as Asperger's a few years ago. I had doctors tell my mother that I would never be able to walk. I had 13 surgeries by the time I was 7 years old. My mother had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, and my dad had NPD, unbeknownst to me. I went through severe bullying in school and was developmentally delayed. Pretty much by the time I was in 5th or 6th grade, I was peeling papers off of crayons in school because I was so far behind. I had to deal with a mom that drank quite a bit in order to numb her own pain, and shamed for simply having feelings, which I'm sure each and every one of us in life has had experience with one way or another, no matter which background you come from. And at the age of 18, I was totally unprepared to live in a world and came to Seattle. That was in 2004. And for the next 15 years, flew by the seat of my pants because I had no sense of direction and where I was going. And I think the first step in realizing that when you have hope for yourself as an individual is trying to realize getting over the fear of shame, not only for your own choices, but understanding you are not the cause of your environment, but you are the solution in order to fix it. And also to realize that because people who are in their own journeys might not be able to accept your change of decisions, or perhaps may have perceived misjudgments of you, it isn't just about proving them right. It's also about proving yourself wrong about your own viewpoint of yourself. A few years ago, I met somebody who was very much like me, much older, that experienced a lot of the same shared trauma, and it just led to me having some sort of a spiritual awakening. And I started telling members of my family, screw you, I don't want to depend on you anymore. If money is all about the relationship, then I'd rather be poor and destitute and be happy. I taught myself how to walk all over again while being homeless and living in my car in Ballard during the pandemic. And then still working through my own. I have had compulsivity issues with spending all of my life, not by choice, but because focus has always been a difficult thing for me in my life. And I ended up starting as a peer recovery coach back in August because I realized that not only does it help me keep grounded as an individual, but seeing and hearing other people's experiences can help you stay sane within your own self. And then at the tail end of this year, I formed my own limited license corporation as a life coach, and I am just, I designed my own website, my own business cards, and am starting to try to get out to help people with as a life coach and doing public and motivational speaking to help them overcome their adversity, and also as an advocate for people who may not be able to afford to navigate our legal system. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I thank you all very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for your leadership and your courage, and thanks for sharing that story. Next up is a wonderful man, Joe Conniff, who we met a long time ago, and he has just come out of the shotgun and is blowing everybody away. Now works for Recovery Cafe. Hear his story. Joe Conniff. Good to see you, man.
Hey, good afternoon, y'all. Great to be here. There's a lot of familiar, friendly faces, a lot of faces of folks that I don't know if I'd be standing up here if some of y'all weren't doing this work and leading the way so that I'd have an opportunity to find recovery, to come here and have something to share about. First and foremost, my name is Joe Conniff. I use he, him pronouns. Monday, May 15th, that'll be 8 years that I've been in recovery. So kind of almost forgot about that around the corner, doing a lot of other areas of focus in my life these days. So I think, just kind of a couple of things that I want to highlight is I've, heard a lot of similarities to my story, to the things that I feel like conditioned me to be somebody who developed a substance use disorder. I grew up in New England, had a mother that had a chronic back condition, and by the time 1996 rolled around, OxyContin and 80 and 160 milligram tablets were in my house. I watched my mother had countless overdoses over the course of the last 20 years. And so a lot of my relationship to substances, I feel like, was conditioned by the things that I saw in my household as a youth. Like, my mom had an internal dilemma that she met with external solutions. And by the time I was in high school and I was having social emotional issues that I didn't have bandwidth to explore, and my parents, because of my mom's condition, didn't have the emotional availability and access, I found some relief in substances. And I experimented in a way that a lot of my peers did, but by the time certain compounding aspects of those social emotional challenges, I was 16, 17 years old, drugs and alcohol started doing for me what I didn't know how to do for myself. And it worked. It worked for a long time. But eventually what I started to find is it was the only resource that I had. And it got to the point that every time I took a drug, the drugs took me, and the consequences started mounting. And I graduated high school around right in 2001. I spent about 6-7 months kind of floundering, trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. And before long, I joined the United States Navy. But kind of like one of those things I feel like I've heard over the years in plenty of recovery rooms is, no matter where you go, there you are. And so I took everything with me, and before long, I was getting discharged for cocaine positive, and I had already been through 2 treatment cycles in the United States military at that time, and it was very limited on resources. Still a lot of work to happen in that department. But I think really what, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. If for what I said resonates, I took drugs and drugs took me, and somebody that's had that experience. If you have that experience, I'll spare the details because we're really here to focus on recovery. And one of the things I want to highlight is, I've had trips through this system, through the local criminal legal system, incarceration, King County diversion programs, all of which I'm super grateful. There's a whole other sides of conversations that need to happen for that, but I've experienced homelessness in these streets. I've had the best of worst of times as somebody from the other coast here in this state. And so I'm very passionate about the people that I spent time with in the streets when I found that time and place where I could no longer fathom getting loaded anymore, and I needed a way out and I didn't know how. Was coming into contact with all of the providers and aspects of our local system, as I mentioned, a lot of these faces here. And so the last, few things I really want to touch on is, for me, recovery isn't just about recovering. Like, you were to take a close-up look at the life that I experienced in my childhood with that substance use in my household, there's not a normal that I really know how to go back to. So recovery for me is more about becoming something. I know there's other aspects to the meaning of recovery, but for me, is I'm like, I don't want any of that stuff that I used to have. There's nothing there that serves me anymore. And so becoming these days is being able to be somebody who's working in this field, being an advocate, being a peer, doing what I know serves my community in a holistic sense. While we need professional and formal, assistance in our lives as people that are recovering, we also need informal. We need peer experiences, those kind of things. And so I want to take last few seconds here to thank, first of all, Councilmember Dunn, your staff, Kane County Washington Recovery Alliance Coalition. There's just so many folks that have impacted again, as I mentioned, my ability to be up here today. The Incarcerated Veterans Program that wrapped me with support when I was incarcerated, so that I didn't just have an experience of being in custody. I actually got connection to services and support. Brad, Malika, Deontay, I've learned so much from y'all in recent years. And so I'm just appreciative for the foundations y'all have laid and the wisdom that y'all share. And, Seth from the Recovery High School, other King County programs. And last of all, Therapeutic Health Services for giving me my first job in the field of mental health, substance use disorder treatment, that paved the way for me to be able to be up here as well and share some experiences. Because the best insurance policy I have is staying close to the work, close to the people that are out in the streets, out in the community. That keeps me grounded in my recovery. So thank you, everybody, for this opportunity.
Thanks, Joe, for those great words. And he's a shining example of what you can do, what recovery can achieve. So we're at the end of the program today. Just a couple wrap-up thoughts. First of all, thanks everyone for coming, both online and here in person. This is our third annual conference. I'd like to continue this annually. And I will just say, what I'm seeing, somewhat because of those horrific overdose statistics, but also because of the 40% increase in depression and anxiety and double-digit increases in substance use disorders from the pandemic, is that behavioral health challenges are now a top 5 issue for the public. They are. Polling shows that. And it's bad, really bad, but there's a silver lining. It means that the public will focus in on it, and it gives us an opportunity to work together to get more funding and to enhance our programs and their reach to our community. So what I'd like to do is just say that we are, I think, committed in a bipartisan way across the board. You heard the county executive. There were a couple of county council members here. There's a couple of Seattle City Council members here. You had a former governor, a lot of other leaders, some other local elected leaders as well here. We're going in the right direction in terms of, I think, our programmatic work. Stick with it. Keep up the good work. You're all heroes. And hopefully we'll see you again here next year. Thank you.